Welcome to the tree generator. Here we are at the signed in page. We are signed in with Google. And let me launch the app, and it first asks if we want to open a library or do we want to start a new project. And we don't need to see this video again, and we'll start from scratch. And let me point out that you can always go here to this question mark button and open the documentation, and in this search box you can always find a phrase you want to search information about. Let's say you want to know about leaf node, so let me type in leaf and go to node parameters, and it takes us to the leaf layer with all its parameters. So let me close this one, and we can talk about camera movement. And with right clicking we can pan the camera, and with left click and drag we can rotate the camera, and mouse wheel we can drag the camera backwards and forwards, and with the keyboard WA S and D we can move forwards and backwards, and we can move left to right. And by combining this keyboard movement and mouse movement, we have free movement in our viewport, like this. So let's start our first mesh by adding a trunk node, like this. And now we don't see it because we are way off from the center of the scene, so we can press this home button and it takes us to the scene center, or to be exact, it takes us to the saved camera position, and we can also save the camera position where the home button takes us, and it can be done here from the set camera default. Now it's saved to that position, and now when I press the home button it will always take us to that position. So let me save it again to this lighter side of the scene by setting the camera default like so. Let's add some more nodes like branches and twigs node, and even small twigs. Whenever you select a node, it shows here the parameters, the details for that specific node. Let's add 3 roots like so, and maybe some let's add vines. This is what the default values for the vines produce. Let's add leaves, leaf node, and we have this default bark material and we have this default leaves material. And let's edit the default bark material for now by enabling using the textures and selecting the texture to use on that slot, on that color slot. And let's edit some of the UV tiling and we can twist the UVs so the tiling effect is not so obvious. And now looking at this tree, maybe we want at least the vines to have their own material. So here's a plus sign, we can add new material and we can rename it as vines. We'll just change the color to something like dark green and assign it to the vines node like this. We could use textures on these vines materials too, but maybe we'll stick to the solid color for now. But for the bark material we do have even more advanced features to use. Let's enable the top layer, and it adds this moss or snow-like layer to the material, and we'll use it as a moss layer by just changing its color to something like this. And for these 2 other layers we could also add textures if we wanted, but we skip that for now. Maybe we'll add the height layer too for this bark material. It basically just splits the material to 2 in the horizontal direction. So let's add some textures for the top part too. Let's add some little bit different looking textures there, so, and edit the UV tiling there too. Next we could edit the leaf materials. We'll select the leaves from the material editor, and this time we go to leaf maker. And since we don't have any texture selected yet on the leaf material, it will ask which texture we want to use with the leaf material. And we'll choose to use this atlas that has two leaves. This is a PNG texture file that has an alpha channel. And let me change the tool to polygonal lasso. This is something that you'll find these selection tools from Photoshop maybe, or similar softwares like that. But let's just start drawing the shape here. And as I click on the very first vertex that I created, it will close the lasso. After this, we only need to set the pivot point for the mesh. And I just click on the mesh and it sets the pivot point. And now if I right click, the pivot will rotate towards the mouse cursor like this. And now we have one of these shapes created, but we can add multiple shapes by adding a new shape. And we just, now if we just start drawing again, it will override that default box shape like so. We are setting the pivot again and setting the direction of the pivot again. And if you do want to refine these points, you can do that by not having enabled this set pivot or drawing mode, but we'll set the material color to white, and this now doesn't need to be cut out because we are making a polygonal shape from this. And let's apply it. We'll make the leaves a little bit bigger so we can see them better, not that big. And now the app chooses randomly between those two shapes that we just created in the leaf maker. And we can duplicate this leaf node and rewire it to a different node. So we have a little bit more leaves, but they are still too big, I think. Yes. Let's add some of these leaves to the vines as well by duplicating them and rewiring. And let's put the leaves here starting from the half point of the, or at the end point of the vines. And lots of more like so. Let's rename these two so the scene is a little bit more tidier and we can see which ones are which ones, and we'll call this leaves on vines, and this one we'll call leaves on twigs, like so, on twigs. Next we should add some grass like so, and it automatically applied the leaves material, and so the grass looks a little bit weird as is now. Let's make them a little bit bigger anyways, and let's spread them wider, and let's create a new material for them. Here's a plus sign in the material editor to add new material. Let's rename it to be grass and apply it to the selection. Let's open the leaf maker, and it again asks which texture you use. This time we use this atlas with many plans on it, and we use the auto processing method by just clicking on this process auto edges. And so now it has detected all these shapes from the alpha channel. So let me just set the pivot points for this message by selecting different shapes with the select button and setting the pivots. And these flowers here we don't need, so we can delete them by selecting and deleting. And now we'll just apply. And so here they are. We can make them even a little bit more bigger and add lots more, like so. Let's see how the wind looks on this. The wind is a little bit strong for the tree maybe. Let's make a little bit lighter wind. And now maybe we can add rocks. We have rocks node. That's quite a big rock. So we'll scale the final formation of the rock to 0.3 maybe. And it's using the default bark material. So we'll go to material editor and load from library. And we'll go to starter kit, and here I have pre-saved some rocks material. We can apply on the, now assign on the rocks, and it looks a little bit better. Let's see some different seeds for the rock. Now let's add some meshes. Meshes can be used in a couple of different ways in the tree generator, but let's add some cut branches first by adding the mesh node. And the meshes are quite small at the moment, but they are there. And we go to the mesh layer details, and we'll choose the load mesh from the library. And I also have this one, this very simple tube mesh saved here, and we'll offset the meshes like so. So they are sticking out from the trunk, and maybe they can be a little bit bigger, like 0.45. And we spread them out a little bit more. And we add multiple instances. And we're probably better off using our bark material on them too. So that's one use case for the mesh node, but you could use the mesh node with any custom mesh that you've created in your 3D app outside this generator, and you just need to have an OBJ file to import here. So this is one use case. Let's rename this as a mesh cut branches. And we'll add another one. Let's make a mesh branches. We'll add a mesh layer, and then we go to the branch maker, which looks like this. We enable leaves, we put a leaves material on the leaves, we make the leaves bigger. We have lots of parameters here also to edit to create the branch shape. And let's edit some of them now. And we'll lower the resolutions, because if we're gonna keep this too high, it's gonna be quite the high polycene very quickly. But maybe something like this. And let's commit the changes. Oh, and the scaling is quite a bit off. Let's change it to 0.06 or so. And let's spread out the distribution, so they are spread out along their parents more evenly, and they are quite small now. Let's make them bigger, like 0.1. And they are now pointing to every which way, so let's align them to their parents a little bit more, like this. Let's see how it looks now. That's much better. There's a lot of detailed parameters here we can edit. Let's say, and a curves tool. There's a, for example, we have this density curve that we don't need so many meshes in the top part of the tree, so we can edit this curve, or we could make a edit the size of the meshes compared to the world height. Let's test some seeds. Yeah, why not? And let's add we can add an effector. This is basically an force that you can add to the scene. So here's you can select the shape that we're using, but we'll be using this sphere, and it's now set to avoid, but let's try attract, so all the meshes are attracted to the sphere. But we'll make the strength quite a bit lower. We'll make the sphere bigger, and we'll make the noise higher, so the effect is not so obvious, like so. Let's see how it looks from different angles now. It makes a nice variation for the tree. Let's hide the sphere. And let's see how this would look with multiple trunks, because we can have as many trunks as we want. We could have a forest if we chose to, but let's make this to have a three versions of the tree, and we'll spread them out a little bit, because now they're starting off from the 0 position. Let's maybe a little bit less. I can see there's a UV problem in the rocks, so let's fix that one. Let me first hide all this other nodes, so it's not so heavy to see in the render, and we can go to the rock details and maybe let's edit the seam height like this. That's okay. We can re-enable all these meshes, nodes. That's it. And let me show you one more thing from the settings menu, because this is getting very cluttered, this scene, with the nodes. We can edit this node scale like this and hide the menu, and when we're double clicking on the root, we select all the nodes, and we can move them in the scene. And the last thing we are going to do, we have the settings panel bind to a V key on the keyboard, just for your information, but we can go to the save to library, and we'll just save this scene, and this is going to be a multi-chunk tree number 2. And it's uploading the textures to the server and saving all the settings of every node to the server. And so our scene is saved. And this is, now we are finished, and maybe in next video we'll continue to export this to Unreal Engine and Unity.